Well, welcome back to the Legal Eagle Law channel where we talk everything about law. Today we're going to talk about what you should do if you're in a car accident. Now, what I suggest, the first thing that is important, that you might have one of these dash cams. It's very important to have a dash cam front and back in your car, because if liability is disputed further along the line, well then you have the camera footage, don't you? So then you know who's right or wrong. And it is an important tool to have, so I would suggest maybe a dash cam in the car, front and back, rear, just in case you're rear-ended. It's an important thing to have. Now, the next important tip that I would have is that you should use your phone. You should photograph any tire marks. You should photograph accidents, like you should photograph damage to the car, what has been done, positions of the car if possible when it's safe to do so. So it's important to use your camera phone, photograph all these scenes as much as you can, maybe evidential material around you. So look up and see, is there any cameras on shops, poles, Garda cameras, police cameras or what, and that might also have recorded the scene of the accident and show the full scene. So also then the next thing to do, I say, is I suppose put on your hazard lights as well. Also, if you have a warning triangle, go over it, check, is the person injured, are you injured, can you move. Hopefully the scene is in a public area. You might get assistance from other persons, but it's the most important to ring 999. Leave the vehicles there unless it's safe to do so. Remove them, and after I said you have photographed most of your evidence, and then move to the side of the road. But if it is a serious accident, it's important to ring the Gardaí, ring an ambulance, fire brigade, as the case may be, is your first port of call, because life takes precedence over material damage. But now, if it's just simple material damage accident, well, the first thing you should do is give your name, address maybe, and some phone numbers, and you give the address of the owner of the vehicle who's driving. If it's not your car, your motor insurance company names, numbers, your motor insurance number, policy number. So maybe a good idea also to photograph this material. You could photograph the insurance of the other person. Also, you might want to photograph the driving license numbers. Also, you might want to photograph the vehicle numbers, registration, the car's year, make, model and colour is also an important thing to do. And you're not allowed to withhold the information from another party involved in the motor accident. So it is an obligation on you to give these details in material damage accidents or accidents in general. So also don't leave the scene of the accident, because it is important that you stay at the scene of the accident, because leaving the scene of the accident, you'll be done for failing to stay at the scene, and that is a criminal offence. But just to have you aware of that, I suppose. Also, it may be important to get the name and number of the Gardaí that comes on scene, because at further date you may wish to contact him. He'll have his report and you can go further, I suppose, from there. Also, well, what will happen next then, I suppose, it depends. If you have injuries, I suppose, well, of course, go to a doctor. If it's a serious injury, you think, either way, you don't feel safe, you feel that poorly from that accident, well, your first port of call is to go to a hospital. Ring an ambulance for starters if you're not feeling well at the scene of the accident, but go to hospital or your GP if you're not feeling well, and that's the first port of call. So depending on your injuries then, I suppose if you wish to make a claim for compensation, well, that's a bit further down the line. But also the damage to your car, you can get an estimation. Now, motor assessors come out for both insurance companies, and your own insurance company is on your side, so they will send their own assessor out, and the other person's vehicle who they're insured with will send their motor assessor out. Then they decide who is at fault. So liability may be contested. So one important point is, don't admit liability at the scene of an accident. It may not be your fault. Even if you think it's your fault, don't admit liability. Your insurance company policy might be void or not. You might not be covered if you admit liability. So again, with photographic evidence, it may be important to photograph any injuries that you sustained at the scene of the accident. You can also show these to the Gardaí at the scene, so they can have them in their report, and you'll have them for further down the line. And also, I would say that then further down the line, if you wish to claim for personal injury, well, you can go to the Personal Injuries Assessment Board, or else you can go to a solicitor. Now, you can fill these forms out yourself to the Personal Injuries Assessment Board, and what you would need is a doctor's report and then you make your application to the Personal Injuries Assessment Board, and they make a determination as follows. They decide what injuries you have, and then you deal with both parties, both insurance companies. So then the Personal Injuries Assessment Board, I suppose, they decide who was at fault, and they make an assessment then what injuries you have on the medical report. Say, for example, it might be your back, could be a whiplash injury. There is a book of quantum, it's called, in law, and it does give different figures. This can be accessed online, it doesn't have to be accessed by a solicitor, and it gives different assessments for different injuries. So the back, soft muscle injury, now the claims have been reduced, and the High Court have accepted that soft tissue injuries usually are up to 3,000, but serious injuries are still accepted, because people do be in serious car accidents and suffer serious injuries. So it's at the court's discretion what they decide to order. It's also at the Personal Injuries Board's discretion what they decide to award. So therefore, that's the Personal Injuries Assessment Board. Now, if you don't feel confident filling out the Personal Injuries Assessment Board, no harm in having a look, but then go to a solicitor. Might be no harm to go to a solicitor to get some legal advice anyway, because I'm not giving you some legal advice, I'm giving you my opinion as a legal person, what avenues to go down, what avenues are available to you. Instead, if you don't wish to go to a solicitor, or if you're in the scene of an accident, and there's some important tips there. But either way, if you are in a car accident, well, it is an obligation that you report to the Gardaí if someone is involved in the car accident and is injured. So in the event that there is no Garda present at the scene of the accident, you must report it to the nearest Garda station. You should also report an accident to the Gardaí if you suspect that the other driver is under the influence of alcohol or drugs, or if you suspect the accident was caused deliberately. So most accidents now, a Garda will come out and breathalyze or intoxicalize a person to see are they under the influence of drink or drugs, or they'll use the new saliva test. It is an obligation on the Gardaí to do this now at all scenes of accidents where there is injuries. So take note of this also. Now also, you'd want to report the accident to your insurance company. Whether you think you're at fault or not, like I said, you don't need to admit liability at the scene whether you think it's your fault or not. So ring your insurance company as soon as possible after the car accident to report and make a claim. You should provide the following information and have it ready. So that's your policy number, car registration number, and any cars involved, so the other party's car involved, your name, their name, the address, phone numbers, any insurance details of the drivers involved in the accident, details of the accident, and any photos you took at the scene of the accident. So there you go, that was just some of my tips on if you're involved in a car accident, some safe things to do, some legal procedures to follow. And also another just less important tip, I suppose, but important nonetheless, your insurance policy sometimes covers breakdown assistance, and this can help you at the scene of an accident. And also, you just check the terms and conditions of your policy, so you'll be covered for roadside assistance also. Also, it might be handy if you join the AA, the Automobile Association here in Ireland, and if you're in an accident, well then you won't have to pay the recovery fees, and if there is damage to your car, they might be able to fix some of it on scene to get you home if once it's safe and the car is roadworthy to do so. And also some evidentiary basics like having a camera, a dash cam. Why it's so handy for an accident, liability is contested, but sometimes the camera don't lie. So there's an important tip for you, and you'll only get them on the Legal Law channel. So do subscribe, click that like for more good videos. Comments, questions are always welcome.